So, you're ambitious. You've got big dreams. You want success. You want to build the life you've always imagined. But there's one problem. You're lazy. You know exactly what you should be doing, but you don't do it. And that creates guilt. Because deep down, you know you're capable of more. You know you could be doing better. You know you're wasting potential. That guilt keeps building, day after day, week after week, month after month, until eventually you stop fighting it. You accept it. You start telling yourself, this is just who I am. I'm just a lazy person. Then the new year comes, and suddenly you feel motivated again. You set the same goals. You make the same promises. You tell yourself, this time will be different. And at first, it feels different. You start strong. You feel inspired. You're full of motivation, and maybe a little bit of delusion too. But then, procrastination returns, slowly, quietly, like that one relative who always shows up uninvited. One delay turns into another, then another, and before you know it, procrastination becomes your routine. Your routine becomes your identity. And now, instead of saying, I've been procrastinating, you say, I am lazy. So how do you break this cycle? How do you finally escape procrastination? There are thousands of videos online talking about this, but most of them only treat the symptoms. They tell you to delete social media, remove distractions, hide your phone, wake up earlier. And while those things can help for a little while, they usually don't solve the real problem. Because the real problem is deeper. The root cause of procrastination can be explained in one word: inertia. In physics, inertia is the tendency of an object at rest to stay at rest, and an object in motion to stay in motion, unless acted on by an external force. That's Newton's first law of motion. But this law doesn't just apply to objects, it applies to you too. When you're resting, you want to keep resting. When you're doing nothing, you want to keep doing nothing. And when you finally start moving, it becomes easier to keep moving. That's the real battle. The hardest part of any task is not finishing it, it's starting it. Because getting started requires an initial push, a certain amount of energy, a break from your current state. And that's where most people lose. Not because they're incapable, not because they're stupid, not because they lack ambition, but because in their mind, the task feels too big, too heavy, too overwhelming, too painful to begin. So instead of starting, they avoid it. And to escape that discomfort, they distract themselves with cheap dopamine, scrolling, videos, snacks, random entertainment, anything that feels easy. So if you want to beat procrastination, you need to beat inertia. And there are two simple ways to do that. The first is this: reduce the stakes. Getting started is the hardest part, so make the start as easy as possible. Take the smallest step you can. For example, if you tell yourself, I need to sit down and write a 5,000-word essay, your brain sees that as a huge burden. The resistance becomes massive. The inertia becomes too strong. But if instead you say, I'm only going to write 50 words, suddenly the task feels manageable. It feels small. It feels possible. And because it feels possible, you're more likely to begin. That's the key. Make the start so easy that your brain has no reason to resist. The second method is the 2-minute rule. If you don't feel like doing something, tell yourself you'll only do it for 2 minutes. That's it. Not an hour, not until it's perfect. Just 2 minutes. Don't feel like cleaning your room? Clean for 1 song. Don't feel like studying? Study for 2 minutes. Don't feel like going to the gym? Just put on your shoes and step outside. Because once you start moving, something changes. momentum begins. And that momentum matters, because objects in motion stay in motion. Once you begin, continuing becomes easier. You often end up doing more than you planned. You write more than 50 words. You clean longer than one song. You study past the 2-minute mark. Why? Because the biggest obstacle was never the work itself. It was the resistance before the work. At first, it feels like pushing a ball uphill. It's slow, it's uncomfortable, it takes effort. But once you get past that point of inertia, the ball starts rolling. And from there, it gets easier. That's why your first step should never be big. It should be small. Almost laughably small. Because small steps create movement. Movement creates momentum, and momentum destroys procrastination. So if you want to change your life, stop waiting to feel motivated. Stop waiting for the perfect mood. Stop expecting yourself to make giant leaps. Just lower the stakes. And take the first tiny step. Do 2 minutes. Write 50 words. Open the laptop. Put on your shoes. Start small. Because that small beginning could be the thing that changes everything. You can use this in every part of life. For the gym, for work, for your side hustle, for relationships, for learning, for building discipline, for chasing the future you keep thinking about. You do not need to finish everything today. You just need to begin. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step.